Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Lennie Robbins YouTube channel. I just want to use this opportunity to say happy Tuesday, blessed Tuesday to all Jamaicans, wherever you are, home and abroad. Know your politics. Let's come together to create a better understanding for each other by stopping, looking, and listening to what politicians say so that we can better watch what they do. Again, let me start by saying the political parties in Jamaica, both JLP and PNP, we are as in what is called the election mode, and everything has been said and done to gain whatever strategic edge one party can gain over the other. I want to use this opportunity this morning to jump into, because I read the Gleaner earlier, and the editorial headline in the Gleaner, I want to just say something about it quickly and quietly. The editorial Gleaner, the editorial headline says, IFC off to a good start. Now, a lot of people may not know what the IFC is, but it's an independent financial fiscal commission that is now headed by a Mr. Courtney Williams. I'll get into his background in part 2 of all of this. So this is just part 1 of the whole thing. The commission was the law that was passed 2 years ago to create this commission, Independent Fiscal Commission. But it was only made known to the public in January of this year. But what surprises me that when I read the Gleaner, what was published in the Gleaner, they didn't say it was made known to the public in January of this year. The law was passed 2 years ago. However, it was just promulgated in January of 2025. Now, I will still and continue to say this. Why can't we speak and print, even in the print media, so that the average person can read and understand what we are saying? You understand? All over the world, people are talking about, we must get the Jamaican dialect, the Patois dialect is appreciated across the world. And we even back at home, we have no respect for the Patois. If we hear a man with a real Patois, most of us turn our backs at him. We call him a damn fool. And that's a reality we need to get over. And I'm saying this to the print media, I'm saying it to even government ministers, I'm saying to all of you guys with your big fancy speech. Speak in such a way that the average common person can understand you, because this is why we note, when I looked at coming out of the last parochial election we had in February 2024, the turnout was so poor, it's sickening. I could even understand what JLP and PNP was jumping about the next morning after the election. Because the voter turnout across the entire island was very, very poor. Sickening. And when I say very, very poor, I mean it. I don't think it reached 1/3 of the voter population that was registered right across the island to vote. I think more than 67% of the people. Maybe about 70%. Anyway, from 67 to 70% remained at home. Didn't vote in that election. And that's because even the print media, the Gleaner itself, we now have to call on even the editors and these people in the print media. It is time we start to speak a language that the entire Jamaica understand. And we use words for the common man himself not using. And over years, because we continue to do that, what is happening that the common people who are required to vote has lost interest in politics. I just want to share that a little bit before I jump into this. So let me get on to the IFC. That said, they are off. The IFC off to a good start. Now the IFC has. Let me jump right into it right away and give you some assessment that they have come up with, because they said they are off to a good. The headline is saying they are off to a good start. Now the IFC. An assessment of the government debt and macroeconomics projection as outlined in the fiscal policy paper for the financial year 2025-26 concludes that the present administration forecast on face value is sound. So whatever the government is forecasting for the fiscal year of 2025 to 2026 is good on paper. Because that's what they mean by face value. It's on paper, it sounds good, because we haven't started the year as yet. Good. Now this means that the government has set what is called a 60% debt to GDP ratio. And that means even that is achievable by financial year 27 to 28. That is achievable up to year 27 to 28. You understand? So the government is working on something. IFC has explained all of that as saying, yes, it's great, it's good, on face value it is good. However, for the current fiscal year coming up 2025 to 2026, the economy, in all likelihood, is expected to return to growth. It is expected to return to growth. There's no positivity that it will establish here to say it will grow. Now, if it is expected to grow, it means for year 24 to 25, the economy went down because there was a couple of 2 quarters there where the economy take a nosedive, and that can be understood. Now, we have an inflation projection for 2025 for this year. An inflation projection of 5.6% and a deficit targeted at 5.1% of our GDP, which are credible forecasts for this current year. These are all figures coming from the IFC. Now, I know a lot of people may not understand the difference between a debt and a deficit. A debt you owe me. A deficit you owe the budget. Or you owe whatever expenditure plan you have or policy you have in place. You owe your deficit. How do you make up this thing? Especially let's come to the budgeting thing. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, let me say this. I'm not an economist by any stretch of the imagination. I did macro and microeconomics, 1 term of each during my university time. My expertise is an MBA, Business Administration, MPA, Public Administration. So that kind of dovetail all of those experience and knowledge to see what I can analyze some of these economic forecasts that they're making. Like I said, the 5.6% inflation projection and the deficit target of 5.1% of GDP are credible forecasts for this current year, 25 to 2026. All of this on face value sounds good, even when we take into consideration world economies and how the tariff push by America is changing trade agreements and economies globally. However, with all of this forecast and projection by the government and the IFC has raised major concern and questioned about how the government reports on some of its fiscal parameters and how it arrives at its different determination, especially as related to short-term economic outlooks. Now hear this again, I'm going to read this part for you. However, with all of these forecasts and projections by the government and the IFC has major concerns and questions about how the government reports on some of its fiscal parameters and how it arrives at its different determination, especially on short-term economic outlooks. For example, the government reporting an unexpected economic decline of 0.9% for the fiscal year 2020-24 will actually be much deeper than what they are reporting. The government report at 0.9% economic decline for the fiscal year, which we are now concluding, 2024 to 2025. IFC found that 0.9% will be much deeper than what the government's reporting. Now, this is misleading. And in all honesty, we must be honest about our situation, because if we're going to get to the truth, we have to acknowledge dishonesty and lies and misinformation. And I really don't sometimes want to use the word lies. I'd rather say misinformation or disinformation or dishonesty in presentation. The IFC is tasked with the job of reviewing fiscal policy paper, and their first job will start April the 1st, the fiscal year 25-26. Mr. Courtney Williams' main focus, ladies and gentlemen, is to provide the nation with his perspective on the government's fiscal program and the fundamental goals of which is to bring the national debt to and or maintain it at of no more than 60% of GDP. Now hear this. 60% of GDP is a ratio that has been predicted by the government, that they must maintain 60% of GDP. No more. No more. Now, GDP, the gross domestic products, are the sum of all products we produce in the country. The sum, total dollar value. So when we talk about 60% of GDP, if I'm wrong, I stand to be corrected, because the list was given to me as an economic question. I know my answer that I'm going to give now, I think I would be expecting to get about anywhere from 85, 90 to 95% correct for this. May not be complete, but I should be right there. If you maintain a debt ratio of 60% to your GDP, since the GDP is a dollar volume, I'm saying that I am assuming, and I can rightly assume or correctly assume, that it will be 60% of every dollar is a debt ratio to GDP. And 60% of every dollar is 60 cents. So my conclusion is that 60 cents of every dollar we produce will go towards debt payment. 60% of every dollar goes towards their debt payment. Now the question asks, that arises from this, with 40%, how does the government manage with 40%? Even when you take into consideration the many changes that is happening in economies across the world, trade agreements has been pulled up and different trade partners are seeking, so therefore we're going to look at different supply chain management, different shipping lines and all of these things. A lot of things is going to change, and it's going to affect us too, because we are not exceptional. But we need not kid ourselves about all this fiscal thing that is happening. Independent Fiscal Commission report and what government is putting out there. However, let me continue. Should the government, it also said that should the government believes that there exists reason to deviate from the projected ratio, if there's reason for them to deviate from the projected ratio of 60%, meaning, this is how they put it, look at how they put it, to deviate from the projected ratio, which is the 60% ratio they're talking about. Not that if it get lower, because they're not considering it to be lowered. They're projecting to get it at 60%. So I don't know what we're doing right now, because they didn't explain to us what we're paying right now, but I don't know what they're doing. So whatever it is we're paying right now, I assume they're trying to bring it down to 60% or 60 cents of the dollar. They may be paying 70 cents right now. They may be. I don't know. But it couldn't be less than the 60%. And the government would want to deviate from that. It has to be more. Because if it is less than 60%, they would already be doing something good and great. So it has to be more they're talking about here, the way they construct this whole argument. Should the government believe that there exists reason to deviate from the projected ratio, it now becomes Mr. Williams' responsibility. It now becomes the IFC responsibility. Hear it, ladies and gentlemen. It now becomes the IFC responsibility to determine the economic findings on which the government relies on as justification for deviating and to meet the new threshold for whatever their proposed adjustment may be. The IFC now will have to investigate that and find out exactly what the government is doing, what was the reason for you wanting to change that, what are the facts you rely on to justify your deviating from the original threshold and to meet the new threshold for whatever and the new threshold you're proposing. What are the things that come together, facts that come together for you to deviate? Now, it is important to let you guys know, like I said, I'm going to do this in 2 parts because it's very long and I want to get the essence out there. And I want to explain this as simple as I can, because I do believe the common man out the street, they need to understand what is being said to them, because too many of us is speaking in a language where the common man has no way of understanding what we are saying. Because some of the things that we are saying to people, we're not even trying to understand, breaking down things to people and let them know. And we now need to start to do that, both to the Gleaner. And this is why people are getting so disinterested in politics, because a lot of people now normally don't understand. And from Buster Man to normal manly days, another rich man make government in a power, a pump in a power, JLP in a power. It's not the rich man, it's the very poor people. Get them in power, because the majority of Jamaicans are still poor people today, and these are the people who are going to vote. And once you start to lose these people, focus on lose these people support, the only thing that's going to happen is that voter turnout is going to be very, very weak. Very, very weak. And we're not going to blame it on ourselves as politicians. We're going to blame it on the people. And not knowing that we ourselves, the print media included, and other people who are also on YouTube like myself. So we're speaking in such a language that common people don't even understand again once. So they have no interest in it. And we now need to start to do a better presentation of trying to reach people across the spectrum. You understand? On the political spectrum. We need to do that, because our own dialect patois is being acknowledged right across the world. But we at home, if we hear a man speak the right patois, we tell him, say, my idiot, him a dunce, him never go to school. But yet the language is being acknowledged right across the world. And that's how backward we are to our own self and our own people and our own development and our own acknowledgement. But yet when we go on to an international scene, we are trying to big it up internationally. And back home, we are tear it down. You understand? Same thing with Bob Marley. Remember them man that couldn't get no airplane in Jamaica at one stage, you know. And the man them got come international and get big and boss internationally. The time Jamaica start to recognize them and start to acknowledge them. So I need to address that, and I had to say that because I know this is causing a lot of discombobulation, discomfort for the average man who has lost all interest in politics right now. There are many other important issues raised by the IFC relating to as it relates to budgeting process, to the government's budgeting process. Let me put it that way. Not to their budgeting process, to the government's budgeting process. I mean, issues of which their findings only allows for a partial assessment of Jamaica's fiscal position by the Parliament and even by the IFC themselves prior to the minister's opening of the budget debate. Now listen to this. There are many other important issues raised by the IFC as it relates to the government's budgeting process. One of which, from their findings, only allows for a partial assessment of Jamaica's fiscal position by the Parliament and the IFC itself prior to the minister's opening of the budget debate. And it does not comply with the FFA rule, that is the Financial Administration and Accountability Act. Now, we have to be frank, And this is why when I hear people jump up and say government this and government that, and no, this and government that. Well, it's good to listen what people are saying, because it also gives you a yardstick by which you can measure where people are understanding or certain things that is happening in government and how government in itself functions and operates. And this is not a PMP thing now, a JLP thing. This is a government thing now. So whichever party becomes the government, some perform worse and worse. Whichever government becomes the government, whichever party becomes the government, the ruling government, you're not free from any blame. You can, and I don't see, for life, I just don't even understand how PMP curse JLP and JLP curse out PMP. Because they have all done their atrocities to this nation. They have all done it. They have all done it. Look at the thing, an important thing of the budgetary process. Your budget, very important. The process by which you create your budget. The process it has to go through to get to Parliament, signed off on approval before the minister will open the budget debate. And that process only allows for a partial assessment by the government itself and the AFC and the IFC. What I can now remember now, ladies and gentlemen, the IFC now replaces the Auditor General, the Office of the Auditor General. They take over from the Office of the Auditor Generals. And if this only allows for a partial assessment by the government, then one can easily say, boy, that is designed by the government. You understand? Because there's certain information they can't hide, because if they allow for full assessment and, over-the-counter assessment of everything, let me put it that way, it might not look good on their part. And PMP don't rejoice because this is not a JLP thing. And neither it is a PMP thing. I'm going to make it out to be a government thing, the party that is in power. Finding ways and means to fast track the budget. You understand? Finding ways and means to fast track the budget. I can't imagine what could force your hand to fast track the budget, because it's not like the budget started. You start to put your budget together 2 weeks before the budget debate open, or 2 months before. That budget has been written long before. That budget has been put together long before. So there's a lot of time to do it. And I can never imagine any reason why to fast track a budget, which allows only partial assessment before it gets to the minister who is going to do the budget, open the budget debate. It's kind of nonsensical, misguided, and dishonest a process. But this is why I say, ladies and gentlemen, and I always say this, it's important for us to really get to know our politics. It is important for us to get to know it. And I'm saying that voting is important. It's important because it determines the quality of life we're going to live. It determines the kind of justice we get. It depends and determines the kind of opportunities that we get to make a better quality of life. And it determines the kind of wealth we can create, generational wealth we can create for ourselves and our family. It is important. All these things are factually important. You understand? And these things we can achieve through voting. right? Because no matter what you see happening, and if you say, boy, I'm going to have to be a musician or a singer or a DJ to make some money. Yeah. But tell me politics doesn't affect you. If there's one man in this country in Jamaica who can say politics doesn't affect him, stand up and say that politics doesn't affect you. Because I can tell you, if you only have 2 suits of clothes, politics is why you only have 2 suits of clothes. Is why you have only 2 suits of clothes. You can't eat a snap of your dinner this evening. Politics is why you can't eat it. Politics affects every aspect of our lives. And it is important that we do get involved in the voting process. But like I said, I'm not encouraging people to vote, and as they say, vote for your conscience. I don't tell people to vote for no conscience. I tell people voting for your conscience doesn't make sense, because your conscience will tell you whether diehard supporter of the Labour Party to just vote Labour Party, or whether diehard supporter of the PNP, vote PNP. That's your conscience talking to you. You understand? I encourage people to vote based on what is called an informed decision. What do I want in life for my family and myself? What do I want in life for my community? What do I need to see? What do we want in this life for Jamaica? What do we want from our politicians? You understand? What the quality of justice we want, the quality of what opportunities we need, what do we need in place so that we can have a better quality of life? What are the things we need? This is what I'm talking about, an informed position, an informed place. Now, when you ask and answer those questions in yourself or debate it amongst yourself and your friends and all of these things, and you can conclude, so you know what, the JLP is the better government for me or the PNP is the better government for me, that's fine, you can make your decision then. But just to go vote because you say you're PNP and JLP, that has to stop. Absolute rubbish. Listen, I'll never support that. And I know people say the PNP is better than JLP and JLP is better than PNP. But how can that be? How can that be? The only thing that tells me that the nation is divided, nonsensically divided, because that does not bring prosperity in a general sense for the nation. There's no way PNP can be better than JLP and JLP better than PNP. What I will agree to, that in certain areas of governance the PNP does better, and in certain other areas the JLP does better. But they do not do better in the same era of governance. They don't. Because I'll challenge anybody to a debate now. The JLP is far better fiscally for the country. And has always proven itself to be a better fiscal government than the PNP. The PNP has proven itself to be a more socially constructive party for Jamaica, a better socially constructive party for Jamaica, not a fiscal one. So they're different too. This is my opinion. They're different in 2 different areas. 2 different areas. So I don't understand how people are saying one is better than the other. Because you can't measure an apple to an orange and say the apple is better, the orange is better. No. They all have their benefits and their ups and downs. They all have their merits and their demerits. But if they are both oranges now, how can you tell me one is better? Because just the PNP and JLP said they were both good for the country fiscally. Which one would be better? We can't make that agreement or that assessment or that conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time we stop this nonsensical foolishness and get down seriously to our existence as Jamaicans. We need a better quality of life. We need a better supporting political caste. We need better governance. We need everything. Too long people out there crying and still jump up behind PNP. We jump up behind the orange, jump up behind the gold. My assessment is that we must burn all green shirt and gold shirt. No man no need to tell me say me a PNP because me a orange shirt got a poll. Or this man is a JLP because you know a green shirt. I got vote. You understand? We need to be more practical in our approach to our lives and our political environment. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to use this opportunity once again to say welcome to the Lennie Robbins YouTube channel. Let us know your politics. Let us come together to create a better understanding by stopping, looking, and listening to what politicians say, because that way we can actually put ourselves in a better position to watch what they do. You understand? I spoke about it in the Gleaner, and I spoke about it a number of times. I'm going to raise it again. It's time we start to speak in a language where the average person can understand us. Because, you know, the people, the Gleaner and the editor, they have to use them big words so the big man can get interested in what I'm reading. So the people who say they are the educated or the academics of the society, they can, you understand? They're the big brains of society. They themselves can read and understand the big word. But the average man who is dependent upon, even the government should be driving for this. Should be pushing for this. Because the average person is the person who vote you in. From Bustamante and Norman Manley days. The poor people vote for them to get them in power. And the poor people have voted to get every party leader in power right now to become the next government. Everyone. So why not speak in a language that the poor people and the average person can address you? Now as time goes on, things get more expensive, things get more, ambitions get greater and all of these things, leaving the poor people behind. So we don't have to speak in a language like them. We just, when we go up on the camp, notice what they do when they're on the campaign. You understand? They speak your yard language and your street language. It's not that they don't know it, you know. They speak your street language. You ever see an article from the Gleaner written in Patois? No. Semi-Patois? No. But when the Prime Minister come on the campaign, man, them talk to you in a Patois. Well, you know, so nothing now go on yet. We have a thing for come up next week and, you know, you speak that language that the poor people can understand you. Good. That time you're a hustler. But other than that, don't care about poor people. Ladies and gentlemen, this is part one of that IFC After a Good Start article. I got a lot more on it, and I know it's going to take some time, so I have to make it into 2 or 3 parts. But I figure I'm going to finish it in the second part. I hope I've said something there, because I try to keep it on a basic level so everyone can understand. Because I know even the intellects in UWI, the professors and all these guys can understand what I'm saying. I'm sure that you understand at the simplest level. And I don't like to use highfalutin big words to confuse a normal man who should be able to make 2 cents out of what I'm saying, or be able to get an input. Have an input into what is being said here and understand it, and get some understanding from it. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, Lennie Robbins YouTube channel, welcome all Jamaicans. Happy Tuesday to you all, wherever you are. Blessed Tuesday also, wherever you are. And don't be afraid, man. Don't be afraid. Make the effort to know your politics. We can all come together and create a better understanding for each other. We must stop, look, listen, and watch what politicians do. Lennie Robbins, over and out.